Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if tech problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. Viewers can also visit the local scene.media/Duxbury/ for information or watching a replay of this meeting. Okay. Unless you've got something before Steve, let's get him going here. What do you think? All set?
Tee him up.
Tee it up, Steve.
Sounds good to me. If we can put the PowerPoint up on the screen, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yes.
Please.
Hey,
Nope.
Teddy, how are you? We didn't miss anything.
Would you like me to just go with the next slide?
Sure, yeah.
I don't like being bossy. I guess that's the best way to do it. So yes, so we can go to the next slide.
Go for it.
So basically, what does recreation mean to Duxbury? Hopefully, I'll explain a little bit of that as we move through this. Next slide. In the town of Duxbury, we really feel that recreation does equal quality of life. As you can see on the screen, a whole bunch of the things that we oversee work with or to make the town proud of its recreation department. I guess I don't need to read them all, but there's quite a few things up there. We'll touch on just about all of them as we go through the budget. So next slide, please. Here's kind of the major functions. There's the recreation department, which runs on a revolving fund, which we'll go through. Within the recreation, we take care of playgrounds, fields, courts, things like that. All of beach operations, beach lifeguards, of course, who the pool, Northfield Golf Course. So within the recreation department, there are quite a few components to it. Next slide, please. This is just an inventory of basically what we oversee. We have basketball courts, playing fields, playgrounds, tennis courts, pickleball courts, obviously the golf course and the pool. Although we don't actually do the physical maintenance on these fields, we are very involved through capital, rec revolving, operating the Ellison Fund. We use CPC, and we work closely with other town departments as well as other Duxbury user groups to help maintain the fields. Next slide, please. That's just kind of the staffing and leveling of our current staff and how it works now. You've got the director, assistant director. And then if you go to the left, there's the aquatic supervisor with an aquatic manager. Those are both full-time employees. We have approximately at any time 25 lifeguards and 10 to 12 swim instructors that teach lessons. Under beach ops, which is something we'll talk about potentially changing this graph in a little bit. Currently, one beach ops administrator. There's anywhere from 8 to 10 beach lifeguards and approximately 45 to 50 seasonal rangers. Within our office, we also have a principal assistant. And then throughout the course of the year, we quarry, oversee, and rely on 100 plus volunteers to make our programs run. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, it's basically the beach operations, its totality, only seasonal. It's only 4 months out of the year.
The beach operations administrator is full-time.
He is full-time.
Correct. He's the only, unfortunately right now, the only full-time. Those other
Are all seasonal.
beach guards and rangers are seasonal, which do, right now anyway, have to go through the entire year because we manage the beach 365, 7 days a week.
Right.
Yep. Next slide, perfect. So here comes, any other questions before we jump into the budget part of it? We can go to the next slide, which kind of talks about what we do have for budgets. We do have 5 budgets that we will discuss, but on top of the 5 budgets, the reason I put it in there is the revolving fund is a major part of our department. That's all of our summer programs, to which the assistant recreation director mainly oversees that rec revolving fund. On the next slide, I think we'll see what that revolving fund did, but we also, and I added this year in this little graph, we usually hadn't put Ellison Fund, but the Ellison Fund is so important, and it does do so many great things for the town, and it's also something that I spend a lot of time with, so I thought it was important to add that to this function of the department. Next slide, please. So here's the rec revolving fund, which is self-funded. To simplify it, basically, you run a program, whether it be a basketball clinic for a week, and you need to budget that out so that your employees, meaning staff, any equipment you need to buy, any shirts you need to give out, things like that, however much you charge, it needs to cover itself. Now, it's not a perfect system within the department throughout the year. Not every single program breaks even or makes money, but the overall fund does. And the reason I say that, there's a couple things. For instance, the Easter egg hunt is free. This Friday night, tomorrow night, the Halloween Fun Fest is free. Turkey Trot Road Race, depending on how many shirts we have left over year to year, can either make a little bit of money or cost us a little bit of money. But I just use all those to so that we can't look at each program individually and say, why did that lose money? And if you look at the top, basically, this in FY 24, the revenues were 262,880, expenditures 204,891. That revolving fund by statute, we leave $10,000 in it to move forward for the next year. And then that fund this past year returned almost $58,000, which is an extraordinarily good year. And you need to credit Loretta Doyle, the assistant recreation director, for doing a great job with the programs. Sure.
Pool is not in the,
Pool is not in the revolving, that's a budget.
thank you.
Yep. If there aren't any questions on the revolving fund, we can go to the next slide. Okay, recreation. Within the recreation, because this is mainly the revolving fund, we really have salaries, which if you see at the top are for the rec director, assistant director, and principal assistant. There's no overtime money in that. There's no intermittent or seasonal employees within that. And then there's a $100 a month mileage stipend in that. So those are the top figures you see. The FY 25 is at 263. The 2.5 would go to 269. We were asked to use, for budgeting purposes now, 2%. So that's why you'll see the request is actually lower than the 2.5. As you move down to expenses, we don't handle electric, water, office equipment. So we really only have a few things within the rec department. With the recreation budget, buildings and grounds, training and education, to which we're not looking for any increase there. Buildings, grounds, maintenance supplies, not looking for an increase. The only increase we're looking for, which is a less than $200 increase, reflects the actual cost for memberships to the National Rec and Park Association and the Mass Park and Rec Associations.
So all the money to maintain the fields and is DPW?
The money, well, we collect $7 per child user fee from the youth groups, but that money goes directly back into the fields, which Jim Savone in Land and Natural Resources does that work.
Right, but I just meant in your budget.
Correct.
There is
yes.
no line here for mowing the fields or lining the fields or all that. It's all.
That would be all.
Jim, right?
Yes, yep,
I just didn't want to make that clear.
nope, thank you. Any questions on that one, or if not, we can go to the next slide.
Good.
Pool budget. So the
Did
first
you ever have your own people to do that?
maintenance,
The field?
as
Or
far
has
as
it
like
always
field
been
maintenance,
DPW?
yeah, always been DPW.
Thank you.
Sure. First, we put on this first slide just the salaries. Again, that top line represents 2 full-time employees at the facility. The intermittent and seasonal was 120,000 in FY 25. You can see the 2.5% would get us up to 123. My request is 132, which is a 10% increase. And this increase allows us to be more competitive in the recruitment of lifeguards, which is a very tough thing to do. There's one, lifeguards in general are tough to find, and two, just in our area now that there's so many pools, we're in constant competition to try to get and keep lifeguards. So we'd like to, in an effort to retain them, also be able to give a pay increase at the start of each fiscal year. What I didn't put in these notes, we were limited on total number of words we could use, is that also our lessons have increased over the past year. We're teaching more lessons, which is a great thing, but we pay the swim instructors more than we pay a general lifeguard. So that also is where that 10% increase comes from.
Did we have a program that you started last year about junior and senior life saving to kind of get a supply of lifeguards?
We offer our full-time aquatics director has the ability to teach that lifeguarding course, and she teaches it, and our hope is that that's a recruitment tool. So we offer it at the pool with our people. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they get it and head off to the
Sure.
facilities we won't mention, but it's just how it goes. But I do think that has clearly helped us acquire more guards. We go to the next slide, we can get to the actual expense budget. The first three, electric, gas, and water, I can be told to put a different percentage increase there at some point. However, I just put 10%. That's historically reflects basically what that increase for electric, gas, and water is. They're all kind of unpredictable for me to put an exact number on. Any increases that we'll talk about, pool buildings and grounds maintenance service. This is literally our pest control service, and they went up a little bit, and there's really no gray area. I just put the exact amount. They charge us $113.85 a month times 12 is the number I'm requesting. As you can see, the 2.5 would leave us $64 short. Waste removal, same type of deal. Our dumpster outside the pool, the fee is increased. It's up to $110 a month. 12 months is $13.20. Again, we'd be $12 shy with the 2.5. There's no other items on this screen where we're looking for an increase, so we can go to the next screen, please.
Training and education, that's adequate if you're bringing in people to
Yeah, we
keep their certifications.
we think it will be. Yeah, that number is basically what it costs us to have our full-timers certified so that they can teach it and to teach new students. But yeah, we think that number is going to work.
So I'll let Gary Pisani here, who was always big on advertising and reaching out to the community so that we could facilitate the facility more and get more revenue, but just make it worthwhile. I see only $200 for advertising.
Social media is our best advertising now, which doesn't really cost us a whole lot.
Okay.
We reach out through the schools. The majority of our advertising doesn't cost us a whole lot of money. That's why that number is what it is.
Okay.
The next slide has a few more expenses for the pool. The top one there's an increase of $200, but that's literally, and once a year we get our water tested from a lab, and it's this year I asked them, the company's in Middleborough, it's gonna be $300 this year. No other changes. The chemicals, I reached out to the company where we purchase our chemicals, and their best guess was probably similar to what we do. Is they said they're probably going to go up about 10%. So that is the number I use to go from 14,520 up to 15,972. Thought I had something in there I wanted to I guess, uniforms and other clothing. That's typically in most of our budgets. That number you see 2,000, and it's going to stay 2,000. Probably as we move forward, I'll be requesting an increase in some of our other budgets. I only bring this up as an example of how I've said it in the past, that we're pretty consistent in the uniforms that we use. So therefore, we can accrue more and have them and not need to purchase. The reason I didn't ask for an increase this year is right now our supply is pretty good. So in my opinion, I think we're gonna be able to stay and not need an increase. That will change, like I said, when we get to another.
But new employees get a
Correct. Yep.
new outfit.
Yes, all new employees get, and we also, because we have a lot of employees that work a lot, when they get worn down, we replenish them, and I think $2,000 will be good for that this year. So that is, yeah. Similar, like I said, with the turkey trot road race, you know, and you have to order enough shirts to have them, and then after a couple of years, all of a sudden you have 30 mediums left over and you don't need to reorder. So that's kind of, we're in a good place there. Put it this way, I would more than guess, I could guarantee next year I'll be looking for an increase there because we'll go through that inventory and need to get more. So that I believe is the end of the pool request.
And just as a side, because we, you know, beat this to death every year, you've increased tremendously since you've gotten the assistant over there for aqueducts and classes and so on and so forth.
Almost on cue. If I didn't set you up for that, but thank you for bringing that up. I was
Didn't
going
want
to
you to
say,
forget, buddy.
no, I didn't, and I was just waiting. I had a feeling it would come up because there's another thing that usually comes up. Our indirects, when you look at the bottom line of the pool, the high school uses it for the high school swim team, for their practices, their meets, things like that. It's been an insanely great resource to the town. I don't think in 30 years a boys or girls swim team hasn't won a league title. And I think a lot of that is credited to having a pool right on campus, as well as when every kid that goes to a Duxbury school is in 4th grade for gym class, they get swim lessons at the pool, which is a pretty unique, I'd say, concept to most towns. Those indirects, if we were to charge the school for basically the time the pool is used, it's probably around between about $25,000 and $30,000 more revenue we would collect. Obviously, we don't. It's an internal thing, but I just like to make that number aware. So if there is the criticism of why aren't you making money, this and that, that's one of the big things that we don't collect on, but is great. And as Betsy brought up, as of October 8th, one calendar year, from October 8th, 2023 to October 8th, 2024, our total revenue is up 16% right now.
What is that number?
At that point, from 58,376 to 67,788. And that is directly related to being able to bring on a second full-time employee. We're able to teach more lessons. We're able to add people to our aqueduct swim team, which is incredibly popular. So fortunately, that investment in another full-time employee has paid off and continues to pay dividends for us. And I think also, although memberships are up slightly, not dramatically, I do think people are happy that they're able to get more swim time in now that we're able to staff the pool a little bit more often.
What is the net loss for the pool?
You know what? I don't have that number.
Mary might,
Mary might, it's,
for last year.
So I don't have it at my fingertips, but I can get that information sent out to you guys.
in the past, the number of, $40,000 or $50,000 has been mentioned. So in that ballpark, I would guess.
But last year we were also closed for a while because they had to drain it and change the water. So that cut down on revenue a bit too, but they also just didn't have enough staff to run the programs that would have made it pay for itself, which was ridiculous. So that's something that we've addressed.
But it was put into operations from a revolving fund.
It was an enterprise,
No,
it was
and-
revolving enterprise and then revolving again.
Yeah, because it was losing so much money. Yeah.
Yeah, for about my first 20 years here or so, it was a budget. And then we gave it a try at enterprise. And I think that lasted 2 years. And it just was proven it couldn't. And then it was discussed. It needed to be looked at more, not to compare to other ones, but I will. The library, it's a service. It's not a business. It's a service to the town. And we spoke of that many times when realtors talk about the town of Duxbury and they give someone a list of what they have. The pool makes their list. So it completes that campus area down there as a service. And like I said, the 4th grade swim program, living in a coastal community, have every 4th grader know that they've taken swim lessons is a benefit and makes Duxbury kind of what Duxbury is.
So if I can just, for perspective's sake, so for the last fiscal year, the year just ended, we took in $254,000 in revenue, and we spent, without capital improvements, just operating budget, we spent 366.
56?
366, so it was a loss of, give or take, 110,000. But that does not include capital because we had a $348,000 capital improvement that we did last year.
Any other questions?
So if we have to stick with the 2.5% budget, quite a few of your numbers were under what the contracts are, basically. So
Yeah, I think
I get that. The question would be, where would you make that up?
well, looking at where we would have issues, the first one is waste removal, which is
Yeah, I know.
$18. One of them $64. What's the chemicals, we would just have to probably, if we couldn't balance the pool properly because we couldn't afford chemicals, we would have to close, because the less you use the pool, the less chemicals you need to use. And the other one is $200. So there's really nothing substantial that we're requesting within this one. I mean, again, if I look at it, it's $64, $18, $200, and $1,400 are the only increases.
Thank you.
Sure. We want to go to the next slide.
I think so.
Your favorite song?
This one's good.
Yeah.
North Hill. $1,500 when I started in the late 90s, and it's still $1,500. As you can see in the notes, it's for basically minimal repairs. Everything in the contract we only handle things that are catastrophic, if you will. And we've had some of those in the past, but if that happens, it becomes a reserve fund transfer. So the amount of $1,500 for us has been fine. A lightning strike, to pay the deductible, something like that.
Irrigation.
Yeah, something, something small with an irrigation. Johnson typically has been covering a lot of those anyway, like they hit sprinkler heads when they mow and they take care of those. So we haven't really, that's never been much of an issue. The only issue comes is when something big happens and then it becomes a reserve fund transfer issue. So no need to increase this. Historically, this number has proven to be good
Can you
enough.
give us a little updated, just an overview of the contract with Johnson Law?
Sure,
Where it stands? Are we in the middle of a 5-year
no,
contract?
yeah, sure, absolutely, good question. We just, it expired the past December 31st. So we, went and did a 3-year contract with a 3-year extension, town option on that. The average annual on that contract went from 101,000 a year, which we collected for the last 6 years, up to an average annual of 178,000 over the length of this contract, if we're to play it out for the full 6 years. So we were very happy with how that worked out. I can say that Johnson Management's been unbelievable. The course is in tremendous shape. I meet with them officially monthly. We meet every first Wednesday, but I'm up there a lot. They go above and beyond what they need to be doing up there. Currently extending cart paths on their own dollar just to help the course conditions and things like that. they're just doing a great job, and the feedback from people that play up there, they're loving it because
I've heard nothing but good things.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
That's a
absolutely
nice
great.
change. Huh?
No, trust me, it is.
What about the clubhouse? How's that doing?
It's doing all right. You know, it's gonna need some work. Eventually, the roof, I know Katie in facilities was gonna have that looked at. I believe she's up for now. It's still fine, but eventually, when we do that building in maybe '01,
Been a while. I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's 20 years.
I think it's more closer to 25, I think, so things like that. There's occasional issues with the HVAC that facilities works with Johnson on. And, other than that, no, it's in pretty good shape and they're,
Kitchens as well and
yeah,
everything's okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
overall, I think I'm thrilled with what's going on at Northville right now.
Great, thank you.
Next slide, please. Beach lifeguards. Intermittent and seasonal, we went from 43.2 up to the request. You can see the 2.5 is 44.280. The request is 49.680. This is just to continue to try to hire at a competitive hourly rate, as well as we've fallen in very lucky compared to a lot of towns, not just on the South Shore, but all over the country, quite honestly, in getting a pretty decent stable of great beach lifeguards. And we'd like to be able to give them all $1 an hour raise if they're will return next year. It works out best down there when we get a lifeguard that's a senior in high school. We can keep them for 4 years of college. And right now, knock on wood, we're in a pretty good cycle of where we have kids. So I hate to not be able to offer them $1 raise.
What is the hourly wage now?
The average is about $17 an hour right now. We do have some obviously higher than that, but then we start some at 16. So
Yeah.
but it falls right. It might even be 18-ish, right in that ballpark though. So that request amount is, as I just described. The next request that's an increase would be equipment repairs. This one here, we may not need to use, but if we need to use it, I need to have the money there. Our lifeguard tower, we've had it for quite a while. It's a good tower. However, over the years, just when you have to move it seasonally, it sits in the weather down at the beach. It's been welded in a lot of different areas a lot of times. So the DPW does a tremendous job in getting it off the beach for us and setting it down. It's never user error. It's just the pressure of putting that thing down at times breaks. And when it does, it costs, it's expensive now. It costs anywhere from $800 to $1,000 to have a welder come off-site because we can't bring it to somebody's shop. So in a perfect world, we have a great winter, everything holds, and when we lift it up to take it out there, we don't need to weld it. But I have to anticipate that we will because it happens, and that's why I am requesting that $1,000 increase for that.
How much do you think roughly a tower would go for a new tower?
They're a lot. They're $20,000, $25,000. They're expensive, and they're hard because a lot of people don't use our style tower anymore. A lot of them have like actually it's almost like a big patio built up with a enclosed area, which that costs a lot more, which I'd love to have, but
Baywatch, huh?
yes, exactly. Uniforms and clothing, I'm requesting a $500 increase. This is probably why I brought up at the pool that I wasn't asking for any, to prove to you that if I don't need it, I won't ask for it. But no, this is just,
We
As
need to
I-
doubt you. Steve.
yeah, as I said, we're in a good, nice little cycle now with returning beach lifeguards. Some of them use their gear for the 3rd year in a row. It's time for the returners to get new stuff. And when we bring in new lifeguards, we have to obviously outfit them. It's the weather conditions have become more extreme down there as well. It's funny, you would think t-shirt, shorts is the great thing. they're cold a lot more than they are hot, believe it or not, throughout the course of the season. So sweatpants and sweatshirts have become a normal practice that we like to give them, just out of taking care of them, because it gets cold down there. So that's a $500 increase. And the other increase under aquatic supplies, this reflects the cost. We have a rescue kayak, which we use a lot. It's part of our, when we're staffed perfectly down there, we would have a guard in the tower, a guard in the portable chair, a guard walking the beach, and then a guard in the rescue kayak at as far out as we want people going, paddling back and forth so that they can look at it inward. That kayak is about 12 years old, and the handles on the side are ripped off of it. It's obviously, I don't know how to measure, but I can tell, just because I've known it since it was born with us, that I feel the ply. It's getting we need a new one. It's more than outlived its life. I think 12 years is a pretty good lifespan. And I priced them prior to doing this budget. We can get a pretty decent one for around $900. And then I'm figuring in, I have to get it shipped if it's not somewhere I can go pick up. So, I've asked for $1,000 to get a new kayak. So that's where the $500 up to $1,500 comes directly, goes into a kayak. The other $500, which we typically ask for, are rescue tubes, whistles, things like that. So
Tools of the trade.
correct, exactly, thanks. And the big increase is just time to get a new kayak, and I would assume next year that number will come down from 1,500.
An item that you buy every 10 or 12 years usually would end up in capital rather than in
Oh,
operating, but this is it's under $1,000.
That's why I did it that way. I literally had it in my capital, and then I'm like, because I didn't know before I started, look, we haven't bought one in
I was in
12
a
years.
capital
you could
light.
do capital light too.
True,
That would save your operating budget.
yeah. I thought at $900, putting it in this line.
It is pretty small, I agree.
But that is another option,
Sure, okay.
capital light.
And that is it for the beach lifeguard request. If nobody has any other questions, we can go to the next slide. Beach operations,
25th.
here we go. Obviously, the very top line represents our one full-time beach ops director. Title is probably something different, but that's what I call it. The second line has been added. There's no notes next to it because at the time, and I didn't have a figure. I spoke with Jeannie just last week, and after doing the compensation study came back, and it put this position at a grade 10, which is what the current director is at, but this compensation study put him up to an 11, or that position up to an 11. So I took the midpoint. It's a low of 72,196, a high of 93,855, which 83,025 is the midpoint. Obviously, in hiring this position, we would look to hire towards the lower end of it, but I figured, and I didn't figure, speaking with HR, she said that's the number I should use for budget purposes. So that position there obviously is a huge ask right now, but to me, it's such a necessary position that the department needs. This was our 4th summer on the beach with the recreation department, and I know when we took over, the town manager spoke, we sat down in his office, he said it was gonna take us, 4 to 6 years to figure out what we need, how to make it work, how to run the place. And I will say that this past summer, by far, was the best summer we've had at the beach. It was obviously with beach access was a big part of that, so people were happier. But as far as just with it being the way it was run down there, our beach ops director does an amazing job. We are open during the high season, if you will, which officially starts April 1st, and I would say through the month of September, 16 to 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's the director and myself who are on call for all that time. That's a lot of hours during the high season. My fear is, and we've got a great one right now, is that's a burnout position for somebody. Those 6 months are nonstop, never ending. Phone never stops ringing. He or I rotate, don't go to bed till the gates are locked, and then they wait back. We open them back up at 7:30 the next morning. They can close as late as midnight if we're open till 11. It's usually an hour after we lock the gates that the last person on the beach can get out of there. There's so many meetings that he needs to be at that he's not always able to attend to everything that needs to happen at the beach. In my opinion, that April 1 to October 1, I challenge anyone if they, spent that time with us to defend not needing a second full-time person there. The question, which I knew would be asked and should be asked, is that what about October 1st to March 31st? What would that person do? There's a lot of off-season meetings that we meet with the DVR a lot, as well as this training to go to. But a number that I just ran the figures for was that because we do cover the beach 365 days a year, 7 days a week per contract, including Christmas, Thanksgiving, holidays, we have to open and close the gates down there. We use as minimal part-time as we can based on our budget. But if we had that person, we pay approximately $32,000 from October 1st to March 31st in intermittent and seasonal. So maybe I'm being too simple, but in my mind, if you deduct that money right there from the new position, we're cutting that salary down already, never mind what it's really needed for, which is, the big season. So I'm sure you guys have questions about that. I'd be happy to try to field them.
Well, the obvious question, which you tried to just answer, is there could be a 6-month job. April 1st to September, you have that extra person. And then when the beach is closed for kind of the majority of it, it's still open.
Right.
There's still people going, but the real season is over. So
But we have to be there and patrol it.
I understand. So that's the question.
Sure, no, and I understand that,
And
yes.
you've tried to address that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Part of me with that 6-month person is, if you read the job description, which I didn't print out for you guys, I'm sorry, I can get everybody a copy of for simple terms, called Assistant Beach Ops Administrator.
If you want to send it to me, I'll circulate it with the team.
Perfect, that's what we'll do, thanks. That person, the qualifications within there are somebody with a 4-year degree with management background. I question if we're gonna find a good candidate to fill that role with a 6-month position. I think that would be very challenging it's hard enough to find beach lifeguards for a few months. So I think to get a really qualified manager, which this person will need to attend state meetings, will need to attend federal regulator meetings, will need to be the face of beach operations with the Duxbury Beach Reservation. So it's more than just in my opinion, it's much more than just a seasonal part-time position. And again, like I said, I think the quality of candidate, I don't know that we would get what we're looking for this position.
Understandable.
Do you have any positions that go from one location to another instead of just being beach, like go from the beach to the pool, or from the beach to the pool to
Right.
somewhere else?
Yeah, well, we have, currently now we have 2 gentlemen that are actually brothers, and they work as beach lifeguards in the summer And then in the off season, they'll do some shifts as beach rangers. They'll also work some shifts as lifeguards at the pool.
Mhm.
There's 2 of those. Couple of our beach rangers that are the college kids will pull in the summer, maybe if we're short to run a program. We need 2 kids to help run a baseball clinic, and you know that a couple of those rangers are former high school baseball players. You will steal them for a few hours, but other than that,
Mhm.
not really. Just those 2 guys that I mentioned are right, biggest, and we're just kind of lucky that in retirement they stumbled into working for us and that they're looking to do that stuff, because especially at the pool, these midday shifts that they're able to cover right now are near impossible to find employees to work those shifts. And we try to not have our full-time staff at the pool sitting in the lifeguard chair all day. It's not the most productive thing we could be doing. So that answer kind of.
Yeah, I was wondering if there is because I agree with you, I can't see anyone's gonna take a job like that on a 6-month basis.
No,
No,
So they're gonna be looking, or some of the town or some of the, club or someone's gonna take that guy full time.
sure. And and again, you never know when you post a position, but I envision, and I don't know if I can do it this way, but if you got somebody in as that assistant position, they aspire to be the director, that person goes. I'm kind of looking
succession plan.
long-term succession plan well beyond I'm gone, that it can continue to, work that way. And that's where this came from. As much, I guess, more so it's just the summer burnout factor. It's a hard job for one guy or woman to do, but I do think it would be impossible to find a qualified person that wants to work.
It was a very successful season. It was open as much as it could be.
As much as it's been open in years.
Yeah.
Mhm. And, so yeah, it's just, I'd like to continue to have it run now.
You mentioned earlier on when you took over the beach op, a conversation with Rainey about it was gonna take 4 or 5 years to really figure out where you are. If you look at what you're proposing here in the 26 column, do you think this is where we need to be, or are there some more significant increases like this that we're looking at to really, so that 464 will suddenly approach 500? What do you really see there? Is there anything else coming out there that we need to do big?
I'll be honest, well, when we get
That
down
would
to
be helpful if you were.
I always am. When we go to the
This guy
third.
could leave, I would play poker with him any night, and walk away with my pockets full.
So when we get to the third line, which is the intermittent and seasonal, I'll explain that jump, which kind of goes into what you're asking right now. But to answer that question, I would say, no, if we could staff this new position, I think we're in a great position to be successful. And I believe that's the proper staffing that this department needs to run at its highest level and successfully for years, and not going from one person to the next. So I guess, yeah, that would be my answer.
But it also includes that increase in the seasonal and intermittent.
Correct, which that has a tie-in when we move forward, which I'll be able to explain. As you can see, the jump, that's a decent increase right there. That is because there's a lot of new things that have happened over the past year. We were able to put, as you read through what it's for, partial openings. So when we staff the beach properly, which, could you go ahead one slide and then just come right back to it? If you remember from last year, we have it broken down for you month by month, what we need, and I'll go through that in a minute. Thank you. If you can just go backwards. So that, a lot of that is, the partial openings require more than a normal staffing that we ask for. There's been more and more training hours that we need to put our rangers through. Again, retention of our returning rangers need to get hourly rate increases. We want to stay competitive with hiring. Extended beach access hours because the beach isn't always open or drive on as much as people would like, when we have that opportunity, as we promised, we stay open as late as we're allowed to do to give people as much access as they can. But the bottom two things, and that'll be broken down when we get to the bottom of the actual month by month and week by week talk, is deterrence. And in that is beach raking. I'm sure a lot of you are aware, we put pallets out on the beach this year for the first time ever. And in my opinion, the pallets were successful in helping us this year. You can debate how successful and what they actually did, but what needs to happen as well as having the pallets out there. The pallets deterred plovers this year. They didn't so much deter the terns. However, you do, where I put in parentheses, beach raking. What we did was once a day, we hook up to a UTV, basically a drag screen if you were dragging the infield of a ball field. And we would drag that whole area, go back and forth, and we would do that once a day as part of the deterrence. Speaking to other communities and people who have successful deterrence, that's something that should be done almost constantly during that time when the terns would arrive. So in order to try to really maximize our deterrence, we would like to have
And the
almost an ongoing cycle of, as you go, you're at the shack for one shift, you're on the back road for a shift, you're doing beach raking as a shift. If we can continue that, we really think that'll also help us as far as deterrence go. And then escorting, we hopefully will have it put in. We're working with the Treasury now. When you buy a sticker this year, there'll be a video about escorting and a quiz on escorting that you'll need to take. Escorting is when there are opportunities for us to get out on the beach, but in a tighter, I'm gonna make it in tighter windows. There's areas where there are plovers or birds that we need to stay a certain amount away from. But we can get, we would limit it, we would make it say be a 30-car minimum in order to do this. But what we do is, and again, I'm simplifying, 8 a.m., we're gonna go out and you can go out for 4 hours. The first 30 cars that get there, they need to be walked out to that area. Then while they're out in that area where we can escort them to, we have to have staff that guards the areas where people can't be. So this will increase access to the beach as well. And it can be as much as 120 cars could get out there through escorting. But in order to do that, we need to have more staff to, as I just described, escort them out, as well as then protect the areas where people need to make sure they stay away from. So as we go through the next couple of slides, you'll see where those increases play a major role, why that number goes from 245 to 286. So if we could do the next slide. This one starts fiscal year July, and it basically, if you remember from last year, it basically just gives you the number of rangers per day that we would need, shifts using $20 an hour, Monday through Thursday. Then as you can see, we increase a couple rangers on the weekends. And then I'm staying in July, there's 18 rangers, which is 9 a shift for 4 days. And that's the 4th of July weekend, which is really busy for us. August just goes through the same thing. We just basically put how many people, this is kind of, not kind of, this is actual, what we need to staff the beach. And if you recall, a couple of years ago, we had a shutdown of the back road because we weren't staffed properly, and the state came in and said we weren't staffed properly. We increased our budget to this many rangers, and in turn, we had a great summer out there. Again, as you move through, you look at when it spikes for rangers, it's always due to a Labor Day weekend, Labor Day beach party, 4th of July, things like that. If you go to the next slide, we continue all the way through the rest of the year with how many rangers we need. And as you can see, we need less in the winter months, which we already went past. But where the increases come that approximately 8% increase would be simply to give our employees $1 an hour raise, which, and I'm using that as a general, not everyone gets $1. But to bring up our average pay of 19 an hour now up to 20 an hour, which is the number that we used. And that would be the exact staffing that's listed on this PowerPoint presentation. The additional monies you'll see are for June and July. That would account for the additional rangers for the beach raking and the escorting, which I talked about earlier. That would require 3 extra rangers per shift, 30 days in June, 31 days in July. Using that $20 gets us up to $21.96 for a grand total of $286, which that would be 16.5% increase overall. And again, 8% of that 16.5 would just be retaining and keeping up with our pay rates. The other 8.5 would be for the additional raking and escorting.
Good presentation, Steve.
Oh, thank you.
Very helpful.
Appreciate it. Artie, our beach admin, puts a lot of time into this and does a tremendous job on this.
Yeah.
And this is just other things to make me go back and harp on, there's scheduling, there's payroll he needs to do, that second person would obviously allow him to not work 75, 80 hours a week all summer long and have other things he could accomplish a lot of other things too, which he's got great ideas. The more we turn on those, I don't know if you noticed the second shaft that we had in the lot this year going to the northern side of the resident lot. Tremendous, but the amount of violations we had decreased tremendously because we were able to, people, as they're coming this way, instead of trying to sneak in and park and then we have to give them a ticket, we had someone at that station, they see it, they stop. That was an RD idea, which was a great one. I guess 30 years in Austin police department taught him a lot of tricks. So.
He knows how to give a ticket, that boy.
He doesn't like to give tickets. The speech to the Rangers is, I'd like to have no tickets this year, which means nobody got in and parked illegally. So that's always the goal we shoot for. Okay, so we still need, so that's the salaries part. If we go to the next slide, now we have expenses. The top one right there is another big jump. It's going from 20,000 to 30,000. This is part of learning what it's costing us to maintain what we have. We currently have a fleet of 4 trucks and 5 UTVs. We use the UTVs a ton. We try to keep our vehicles, the trucks, off the beach as much as possible, just in order to preserve them. Obviously they have to be up there quite a bit, but we've worked with Chief Reardon, actually put us in touch with his mechanic, and we're going to be able to save a lot of money and get better maintenance. We can use the fire department's mechanic, pay his overtime rate, and he's really good with UTVs and things like that. So the way, what's normal use, if you were to go just buy yourself a UTV because you had a big yard and you wanted to drive it around, they might tell you UTV could last you 6 to 8 years under normal driving circumstances. What we use them for is the opposite of good normal driving circumstances. They're on the sand every day. They're down in the salt water every day. These things, because they are expensive, and we put them in our capital request because they need to be replenished, but we need to service them a couple of times a year. And what's great now is that this will be our first summer to really take advantage of our connection using the fire department. Again, something we've learned since we've taken over, as opposed to needing to take an employee or 2 actually to put it on our trailer, drive it to Bridgewater, get it serviced, get charged double, maybe triple the hourly maintenance fees we're gonna take care of them, but it's still twice a year per UTV is about $700 still about $350 per service, which big picture saves us a lot of money. We also we're very lucky that through ARPA funds, we got two, I call them new, but pre-owned trucks to our fleet. So right now we have our best two trucks are our 2022 Ford F-250 and our 2020 GMC Sierra. Those two also have warranties with them for major stuff. So there's one, actually, we just cashed in on a warranty and got one of our trucks taken care of, something minor, but the dealership covered it. The issue, and again, not that something can't happen to those. It's
Hostile environment.
it is, hostile environment's a good term. Our other two vehicles are a 2018 Chevy Silverado that's on schedule to have some work done. There's an issue in the engine right now. I'm not a mechanic, but there's metal in the engine, which
Doesn't sound
isn't
good.
good. That's what I said. That doesn't sound good. I'm not a mechanic, but we need to get that. That's gonna be around $5,000 to get fixed.
Is it worth fixing?
Yes, because our mechanics have told us it is,
Okay.
and I trust them. They've told us, which I'll go now to, we have a 2011 Chevy Tahoe, which we used to have, last year at this point, we had a different Chevy Tahoe, which I think I told you was more of a station down at the beach. It had a stop sign for a floorboard and just.
We give you some primo cars.
Yeah, we
out
did, we
there.
did. I always say, and I mean this, I'm very thankful to all the departments that do give us their hand-me-downs, and that's how we're gonna continue to operate for the most part when we're, not getting another pre-owned vehicle. But I also do say they typically aren't giving us their favorite if we're getting it.
They just
So,
get trashed
yeah.
down there though.
no, and I agree,
Yeah.
that's why when our funds came and even I went to put it in my capital first to get two new vehicles, I would never ask for a brand new vehicle. That would be a waste of money. So pre-owned is definitely the way for us to go. But just to answer the question of is it worth investing in that other Tahoe, we had it up at the rec office. And I went out and I said, where's the Tahoe? And then I looked at my phone. The mechanics are like, we can't even let people drive this thing from the beach and back to use as a station. So they're very good at telling us, yes, use it, no, don't use it. So my long-winded answer of investing in that 2018 Silverado is yes.
Okay.
And again, so those two vehicles it's unpredictable. We try to keep them off the beach, off the sand as much as we can. When we're in our high season, we do have 4 trucks that we need to be used at all times and 5 UTVs that are in constant use. We've looked into, because since we got the 2 new ones, we want to take care of them and keep them as long as we can and as good as we can. So we've done some research, and there's an undercoating that you can put on trucks. It's a greasy film actually, but basically you spray it up underneath and it helps prevent rust, keep stuff off.
Sheila was talking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way it first was explained to me is, the Rhino Shield, they spray in the bed of a truck. It's that, however, it doesn't harden. It stays a little more fluid. But to me, and it's about $1,000 a vehicle. But again, when the mechanics look under our vehicles, they said this is a no-brainer to put on a good vehicle, the protection it will supply from the sand, the salt, and rocks, everything that picks up, and just rust prevention in general. So we'd like to, part of that increase, we'd like to have the 4 vehicles in our fleet as soon as we have the
The
funds.
ATVs,
No, this is for the trucks.
all 4 of the trucks.
Correct, all 4 of the trucks. We are looking into it. We're gonna talk to the place we buy our UTVs. If doing that on UTVs would be worthy of saving, because anything we can do to keep them going longer is good.
You get to hose them down. Oh,
It's
sorry.
probably not as much surface area in the ATVs
I would think they're less, yeah.
to provide the protection that for a truck.
No,
Have a lot
exactly.
more surface area.
Yes, we hook up on the west end of the bridge, that hydrant.
Yeah.
We wash the UTVs daily.
Good.
But you can't get
No,
everything.
but it's better than nothing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's part of the morning routine is clean the UTVs because we use them. And sometimes if it's slower down there, we'll clean them a couple times during the day and spend more time, but yeah, every day they get washed.
Okay.
So that's where that figure came from. A lot of it, as I said, is unpredictable. Could we steal a year with those two lesser vehicles of not needing it? I would say absolutely no. I wouldn't even think that. We're gonna need money there, and I can't predict the exact number, but I know based on what we're spending, I think that's a reasonable request. Moving down, our next increase would be,
Well, you saved $1,200, don't skip over that.
you know what? I didn't want to brag, but no, that,
Why not?
a couple of years ago, we got it through the budget, then we purchased it, we bought a trailer. So now we can store two of our UTVs in that trailer that we used to rent for $1,200 a Connex box. We no longer will need to rent that Connex box, so that's why I eliminated that $1,200 from our ask. Increased waste removal. This is just another hard number. We talked to the company. They're going up in their price. They're the best price around for our service, and the service with this company, because again, another learning curve. We used United, which is a national company. Like if you go to an NFL game, they have all the NFL contracts. What we found with them is they were a little bit less, but the service was horrible. I couldn't get someone down there. They wouldn't show up. But in reality, to the company we use now, 7 or 9 porta toilets being serviced 7 days a week throughout the summer is a huge deal to them. So we're at the top of they text us every morning, a picture of just cleaning the porta toilet. So we know every morning they're taking care of it. The other company wouldn't show up for 3 days. No one would answer, return your calls. So what we have right now is a home run with this company. And again, from 36.3 to 39, they've gone up in their prices. And we looked at everyone's going up a little bit. So that number does fall within the industry of what they cost now. Training and education we left. A $250 ask in printing. That is really just the signs that you see all down at the beach. They get beat up, worn, and don't look as sharp, so we need to keep up on those. Those have been a huge, again, Artie and his law enforcement background doesn't feel as though we can write a ticket if you park somewhere that it wasn't known to you that you shouldn't park there. That's why we have more signs down there and in turn write less tickets. So
Well, for a long time, there was an aversion signs at the beach.
there still is, but
From the pristine beauty.
that is still a fight we
A little
fight,
bit
but
of practicality, you know.
there you go. Exactly. So that's that. That office equipment and supplies, you see that
It's up and down.
9,409. That's not us. It's in here, but that's the Treasury Department. That's the physical sticker. They buy those, they handle that. So that number is listed in here, but we do nothing with that. So that number, I have no idea.
Well, they buy them every other year. There was nothing. Oh, wait a minute.
It's not,
I'm reading. it.
No, I didn't.
Sorry, I'm reading it wrong.
I just didn't write
Not a
two
problem.
point five,
Yeah,
I
not a
just
problem.
carried it over.
I get it now.
Right, but it made the level funding look, you should add it, because
Okay,
it's giving you a false read on that
Ooh,
column.
that's
It would make you 7181.
71.
9,000 more, 80, that's a
Yeah.
great point, yes.
And
Right.
so it looks like a much bigger jump.
Nope, I see what you're saying.
Well, yeah.
but, wait, I don't, so the,
He didn't, it was.
You know what? I don't know if we added that into our
Yes or no, who knows, right?
request. That's a really good question.
Well, why would it have gone down?
but, so that's the tax collector, right? That.
Yeah.
Treasury
Yeah,
Department.
Treasury Department.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're doing a lot with the beach stickers right now, and that's why I was surprised. You paid that in 25, is that what?
I'll be honest, I don't know what they paid.
The,
That,
the,
I don't
the
even
people
know.
that do the stickers are pushing them to use a different type of sticker
Yeah.
because they hate the fact that they have to peel it back and
Yeah,
write the
yeah.
number on it.
Right.
What I'm saying is that you're gonna be giving him it's gonna be a false read for his level funded, because it looks like it's 71 and down from 79. It's not.
Oh, yeah, so.
So you need to add that
Correct, yeah.
9,000 in there,
Totally, yes.
No, or you
To
should
go
subtract the 9,000 from the
Or-
25,
right?
and then, so then bring the other one down to 71.
Just
Well,
a quick
well,
question,
but
why,
it's-
why is it even in there?
Yeah, that's,
You guys,
Charge to his department.
But why is it in
The
there?
cost of the stickers, it's part of the cost of the operating the beach.
But why is it in there? Why isn't it the treasury department's?
They charge it to his department.
Because it's part of operating the beach. It's related to the beach.
Oh, I see. You don't think it should be charged to his department? It
Why?
just
I think
historically
I
has
think
been.
it's-
I can speak to that.
Doesn't make any sense, but.
Mary,
know.
Mary,
yeah,
No, it's definitely what we're trying to do is capture the full cost of what it takes to operate the beach. A couple years ago, we broke out the revenue on the stickers into the various types of stickers that we offer. And so we're trying to do the same thing with expenses to capture as many of the direct expenses related to operating the beach as possible. So that's why it's in that department. That I did add it, Steve, in my worksheet to your level funded. So that would bring your level funded total to 81,287. However, the cost of that sticker that may not settle where it is right now in terms of Steve's budget, because we are exploring some options on how to handle processing of stickers next year. The vendor continues to apply extraordinary price increases because they would prefer to have an automated system to generate the number on the sticker and print it out for fulfillment purposes. Right now, they have to manually write the number on the sticker because we are using a sticker that has an electronic RFID tag in it. For next year, we are going to eliminate the RFID tag because the cost of printing those stickers themselves for the stock is very expensive. But also the fulfillment of having to touch one individually is very expensive. So the treasurer's office is exploring some other ways of handling that to address customer service as well as pricing.
I think too, maybe the question can be asked of Steve and Art. Is it an issue? Do people like take a sticker and move it from car to car? Do you catch people?
oh, yes,
Oh, it is an issue.
yes.
Okay, I mean,
Nope, yeah.
I'm being naive.
No, no, definitely, and a lot of times it's not always just done totally sneaky, it's done with a lie. Oh, I'm just using this because my car is in the, yes, long answer, yes, people try to do that.
Okay, so there's
And
a.
the cost of the sticker, not your department, but what is the sticker, $190?
No, the overstand out of town,
Okay.
yeah, that's like $400.
Well, fine.
it's really, it's adding up though. I mean, the increases that, year over year on those stickers, when I met with the tax collectors,
They don't all get the senior discount. do they?
The vendor really doesn't want us to do it. And they're
Well,
gonna
the
make,
vendor,
they're
right,
gonna make it unattractive for us to continue to do business with them.
But my
That,
point,
that barcoding was encoded there, I thought it was a tool that was being used to help keep track of the numbers of vehicles on the beach. Is that still true, Steve, or is that no longer? Because there used to be a wire underneath the crossover and it would record going and number.
Mary.
I can speak to that. So the intent behind it was that was going to be the purpose. However, the device, so there's a person in town who created the device that does the electronic reading, and it actually takes a picture of the vehicle as it's attempting to enter or exit the crossover. The problem is that those devices, there's only 2 of them, so it's not capturing all of the crossovers. And right now it's not being used for any kind of enforcement purposes, although it exists. But we don't own that equipment. So there is essentially a very generous person who developed this technology who goes out at the beginning of the beach season and installs them. And at the end of the beach season goes out, digs them up and removes them. And it's a device under the ground at the crossover, as well as cameras mounted up on poles. Because that doesn't capture all of our activity, we can't really use it and police as much as we would like to. And so the treasurer is currently exploring similar technology. Because the existing one that we have right now is not sort of commercially available, and therefore for support, repairs, and maintenance, that would not be an option. There are some other beaches located across the Commonwealth, in particular down in Sandwich and some other places on the Cape, that do use electronic technology, kind of like when you drive through on the highway and you use your Easy Pass. There's technology that could read a sticker and marry it up to the license plate of that vehicle. And we are currently exploring the cost of that, and whether installing something like that might be a viable option.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So TBD.
Two more items, bottom of the expenses, public safety supplies. These are, we're looking for a $500 increase, it's all standard tools of the trade, if you will, and our cones get beat up, our shovels break, we need
Sure.
to buy more things, so that's just,
Right.
as it says there, reflects to replace or maintain these things. And then the uniforms, same type of thing, we've got rangers that have worn a lot of the same stuff for a lot of years, that it's time to restock some of our returning staff, as well as we need to provide appropriate clothing for new staff. And I believe that includes the beach. Yeah, the next slide just basically is a summary of our requests. And obviously, if you look at the last one, the beach ops one at 65%. That second new full-time position obviously makes that percentage go up quite a bit.
Right.
Everything else.
And the range you want to give across the board.
Correct, yeah. Intermittent
There's a lot of
seasonal,
bodies and a lot of hours, a
correct,
lot of shifts, so
Yeah.
a buck every one, so.
yeah.
Right.
So it's really salaries are big,
Cost of doing business.
which again, we're learning the best way to do it.
So how are all the other programs doing in the rec department? I mean, all the summer camps and basketball camps and all that
Great.
stuff. They're pretty well subscribed, I think.
They are, and as you know, and I mean, you remember back a long, long time ago when camps used to be crazy. We'd have the kids camp with 120 kids for
Yeah.
7 weeks, which the world changed, and that's not what happens anymore. But I think just a great reflection is the return from the revolving fund this year of over $50,000 kind of speaks to how well received our programs are. And Loretta's done a tremendous job. She's added a lot of new programs kind of out of the scope of your traditional soccer, baseball, basketball thing. We've utilized the Tarplin building a lot. She does STEM programs, robotics programs, things like that, those things fill up the second they get.
Make sure
posted.
that she's working with the DPW depending on that, because they might be using.
I was
that
there.
space.
I did a walkthrough on Friday. We've already been in touch with the school department about hopefully getting classrooms
Perfect.
because I don't want those programs to go away. But obviously the DPW relocation takes priority, and I totally get that. But I think we're going to be able to work out and find classrooms in the school to keep those STEM and robotics, and I'm forgetting something else, but on that scope type thing going, because they are very, very popular.
Yeah, perfect.
Um,
Any other questions?
yeah, that's my lot.
Yeah, I'd say,
Yep, sure.
so many of these things you do are, some are services and some are, some pay, things you get paid for. What, this 1.3 million that is your total budget, what is the revenue from that department?
Can I show my screen?
Yes.
Sure.
Please.
I was anticipating this.
Mary to the rescue.
Hang on, let me find my sheet. Okay.
Oh, it's so much easier when you're home and you can access all this stuff, Mary.
Exactly. So can you see a spreadsheet up on the screen?
Yeah.
Unfortunately has a lot of red on it.
Yep.
Okay. So the current sticker prices are right here, 194 resident and 400 for a non-resident. So what we're looking at here is the beach permit revenue that we generate. And so we've talked about this before. It reached a peak in 2018 and then started to slowly decline. Of course, this year was the COVID year where everything was shut down. So then we had a dramatic increase in 2021, but ever since 2021, we have seen an annual decline in our revenue. So for the fiscal year that we just ended, we took in 1.1 million. And if you back off the amount that we pay for the lease, so this line right here is the annual lease, we are assuming, and this forecast makes us an assumption that we're going to remain consistent on the price of the lease. And of course, that's negotiated annually. But then if we back off the cost of the beach ops budget, which is this line here, and then if we also factor in indirect costs, which is basically any benefits associated with that particular department, you can see an estimated net impact of the beach operations. We began to start losing money in 2023, and it's projected to continually grow.
You have revenue for the other programs, the other departments?
I'm
Or-
just looking at the beach. I'm not looking at the rec revolving. We know that the rec revolving takes in more than it expends by the fact that, Steve describes to you, each year we leave $10,000 in the rec revolving and we turn back the remainder to the general fund. And this year, the year that we just ended, turned back almost $58,000.
Okay,
But if we get money for the North Hill, correct?
We do.
70.
And that, so in year one, so it's right now, we just entered into a 3-year contract with them. And as Steve described, it averages about 170, but in year one, the direct lease payment is going to be 156,000.
Yeah, what I'm trying to figure out is, does the recreation department total, it sounds to me like we make money on that department. So some of these things should be almost considered investments, than more than they are expenses. So if you take, what the money we get from the pools, the money we get from North Hill, the money we get from the beach, from the beach stickers, does the total revenue, does it exceed the $1.3 million?
No,
No,
pool starts up, the pool starts up to.
100.
North Hill pays for.
and that does not include any capital investments at all. This is strictly operating costs. So every year we have some sort of either capital or capital light with respect to the pool.
So my read on the thing would be that the $1 million that lease of the beach for $1 million, to me, that's a maintenance issue to maintain our shorefront. I try not to tie it to the beach expense. I know that it loses, but I do know that the town of Duxbury could not maintain that beach as a seawall for $1 million a year. I mean, it's a cheap spend to keep that seawall out there.
Keep the barrier beach
Keep the barrier
intact.
beach, keep the barrier beach.
And if you look at the aerial views of it, it would give you a heart attack. It's pretty narrow, so
It is, but
protecting is an important part of what we
needs
have to
it.
do.
I think they're currently doing a good job.
Yep,
So I look at that. I don't tie it together with, although I'd love to, because I'd love to see the revenue
mhm,
from the stickers higher. To me, it's the $190 for the beach sticker. If I spent 4 hours out there with my grandchildren in one summer, it would be worth more than $190. I mean, I can't go to dinner with my family for $120 once. So that's the way I get through sleeping nights on $1 million. And to me, it's short money. So I take it out of that, but I know you can't, Mary, but
Mhm.
I take it out.
No, I appreciate your perspective. Absolutely.
Well, and I think that, especially since, Loretta's been there to assist you in growing these programs, you've done a tremendous amount in the last couple of years of creating new programs and creating more revenue
Mhm.
since COVID.
Yeah.
And, the two of you have been fabulous on that. And snaps to you, Loretta, because I know how hard you've worked on this and,
It's definitely a team approach, Betsy. We're a great team.
it's a great team. It is a great team, but you've done, we've been, watching this and you've responded to our ask to grow these programs and you've done a good job. It's not been easy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Not all. Good job. Steve.
Thank you.
Very good presentation.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Well put together,
Thank you.
and it helps us understand your department pretty well.
Any other questions?
No,
Teddy's all set?
You all set?
Yeah, what I would bring up is some heresy. That is,
What a surprise.
yeah, it's not interesting.
Our resident curmudgeon, yes, yes.
Didn't think I'd reached that age, but I guess I have.
You passed it.
That's a new taillights.
The one thing that I question, we have North Hill Golf Course, which contributes $175,000 to us. North Hill Golf's making money and they should, and I'm happy for them. And they're doing a great job. They have programs up there, right? Teaching programs for kids. Why should we look at the pool any differently? If the pool was leased out to an outside group, they're in charge of making a buck. Would get more expensive probably, but we wouldn't be losing $100,000 net per year on it. And so is there any concern?
Privatize the pool is what you're saying.
Bingo, yeah,
Have you,
Run the
North Hill.
pool like North Hill.
yeah.
I put it out to bid, oversee the contract, just like I do with North Hill. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's never been,
Is there companies foolish enough to do this?
I don't, we've looked, a while ago, we looked into, it, we couldn't find one that was, I've asked about it. My only, and I don't disagree with the finances of that, my just quick thought, as you're just bringing it up now, would be, would Duxbury High School have the access they have? What would the town itself have to pay? I think that 100,000 a year, which I doubt the pool would get the same as a golf course would, but I don't know
Yeah.
that. But what I would say is the town as a whole would then need to pay that place because I couldn't run if Duxbury High School, golfed as much as the swim team needs to use the pool or the fourth graders need to use it. I think that would cut into that revenue.
Mhm.
And we wouldn't have the accessibility like that if we need it. If something happens and it's a big high school event, they make the state championships, they have the ability to have a practice. If it's the Betsy Sullivan pool, she's booked it to some diving club that's paying her money, she doesn't care. And Duxbury High might have to go rent a pool somewhere. That's just my quick thoughts on a private place running it.
I just think it would be worth exploring and maybe.
we did look at it at one point. Yeah.
Anyone that does it.
I think we talked a million years ago to like the YMCA to see if they were interested in it. Now they've built their facility. They've got one in Plymouth and they've got one in Hanover, so they don't care about
I don't
us.
know if there's enough ways to make money at a pool, like there is a golf course.
No, I don't think
You have a
it's,
pro shop and you have the restaurants and everything else that North Hill offers.
And what I would say also is, and
They don't serve liquor at the pool.
And it comes up a lot
All
when,
right, forget that idea.
Cancel it. I got rid of them.
there you go.
Yeah,
Now,
No,
look at the customer pool, you've got all a bunch of adults playing golf, and then you've got this wide range of people you're trying to satisfy in the operation of the pool.
no,
From seniors that want to have exercise to fourth graders who want to learn how to swim,
yeah.
and everything in between.
And where I was gonna go with that is that it comes up when you talk about, should we increase our fees for certain things? And my counter to that is, I always say, back when we were the only game in town, 20+ years ago, you had to go far to find a pool. We controlled the industry a little bit more. Now my fear is always, if the Hanover Y, the Kingsbury Club, listen from it, that they also have weights and cardio and fitness rooms and things like that. We only have a pool. I think the difference in price has to be this. If we start creeping too much to them, I would say, you know what, for $50 more, why don't we go where we can lift weights and do spin classes? Where at the pool, all we have is a pool.
Without the school, the swim team and fourth grade, how many citizens utilize the pool?
I have all those numbers just not in front of me.
That's fine,
Oh.
if we can, just from a percentage of,
Absolutely.
it's actually grown a lot because once they hired the assistant, that aqueducts doubled. Because there was a huge wait list for the aqueducts.
and those are kids.
Those are kids.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
they're,
yeah,
yeah.
That, it would be interesting to me.
And I think also because when we had the limited state there, we weren't open, so you've got most families, mom and dad both work. And if they can't take their kids to the pool on a Saturday or a Sunday because the pool hours don't accommodate that, they're not gonna join it. So we were limited in our hours too, which has improved, but I don't think we've caught up to the market yet.
No, I agree.
So,
I'll get
Al-
that.
Thank you.
Al-
As a rather conservative CPA, I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack. First of all, there are very relatively few organizations that are not either not-for-profit or related to a school or a town with a generous donor like in Duxbury's case, where the pool is essentially set up. And I can speak with some experience because my children, two of my children, started with aqueducts when they were 5 and 6. And they swam at the high school and they competed at US swimming. And they were recruited by some pretty significant Division I teams. Now, what I also want to bring up is there's an expectation, if you're a citizen and you move to a town like Duxbury, that you're going to be able to enjoy a certain number of amenities. We've got the natural amenities that we all absolutely love. We've got our history, we've got our beach, we've got a pool. And to me, I think the issue is from a very strict financial point of view, is to say, what is a reasonable amount of revenue that you can produce from this activity? And I would say to you, after last year's run through, this is going on, I think, 2.5 years in this committee. And we discussed seriously adding an aquatic supervisor, et cetera. I think you've done an outstanding job generating additional revenue. I think all the colleagues here would share that estimation. So the question then becomes, at what point does a town, a municipality, take a look at the revenue generation versus the provision of something that's really a bonus? Because not every town has a pool, like this water. And I think there comes the rub. There comes the rub. How do you maximize? And frankly, from my point of view, to be just very direct and blunt with you, I would pay attention to what you and your very talented associate is doing, and all the staff at that pool. And what I'm looking for is productivity, output, and generation. And it's not just the generation of dollars, it's also the generation of good.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it there.
And it's a swell place for a birthday party.
And fantastic.
We do like Friday night lights. We do, what is it? Dining to Dive. We do movie night now. So we've added, we're doing after school at the pool.
And also you've got tie-ins, and Betsy just brought this up, with council on aging and different types of aquasize. People that have medical issues. I mean, there are several people in town that I know that are friends of mine who, that's a lifeline for them because they have certain issues related to aging, in that category as well, and they take advantage of that.
No, and I can
So-
tell you, the Aquaside program we have in the mornings is so popular. And it's really become more of a, they're a family, those Aquasizers during COVID, because the pool was closed, but we still had to go and maintain to make sure the water didn't turn green. We had to keep the pool balanced the whole time. But on Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, when I would go balance the pool at 7 in the morning, there were 6 to 12 of the Aquasize ladies that brought lounge chairs 6 feet apart in the middle of the pool parking lot that I would, with all our masks, waiting and safe, and they're like, this is what we do on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings, like, and I was like, this is a pretty cool place, you know, that goes to your service, yeah.
All right, perfect. Thank you. That was fabulous. Ton of work.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
No, thank you.
We'll get to those numbers, you guys.
I think we've, the next article, on the agenda was the, special. I think we've already voted all of the
That we can.
articles on the warrant that we can.
Yep.
At this point.
Yeah, there's just one left and we're waiting for the numbers, and so we're fine. Anything else, Mary, that we needed to do for you, my friend?
No minutes.
No, we have no minutes. We'll have some next time.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could, I just want to show my screen for a second and just share with you guys what I'm up to. Can you guys see my spreadsheet here?
We're kind of sort of.
See it, but I can't read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of data. I'll try to make it a little bit larger if that helps.
Report to represent. Is that your revenue sheet, Mary?
No, it's not. So what I wanted to explain, because this is going to be coming out to you guys probably over the weekend. I have been talking to you about the fact that I've been putting together a workbook in order to lay out option 1 and option 2 side by side. And so this is what it looks like. And so I'm including the current year's budget and then prior year actuals so that you can see what's happening with the option 1 request and option 2 request. So I'm populating this right now with all of the departmental budgets that have been entered into ClearGov. And this should hopefully make it a little easier for you guys to analyze what is being described to you as the departments come before you. All right. So I will finish this up and get that out to you so that you can have this in front of you for future meetings and use this as the basis of your recommendation process.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Is-
Thank you.
Is there something that I could read to educate a little bit about if we do the override and you know, how does that work? Because we can't do it for just 1 year, basically, because we'll be in the soup again in the following year. So I'd like some education on that.
I think that we're definitely going to have, if indeed that is our recommendation. I think that we are going to have to include in that recommendation, okay, to, you know, next year would be X, but it would behoove us to do X plus in order to sustain us on a 5-year look forward or something of that nature. So yes, I think that that's definitely going to be.
But the 2.5% goes, if we say we do a 5% this year, that becomes the new baseline.
Right.
If you did an override.
If you do, you do an override,
So the override wouldn't be a percent, it would be a number.
so yeah, it'd be a number, but that'd be the new number that next year can be the 2.5%.
Would be the new baseline.
Above that new baseline.
Right,
So I've heard that the last time we did an override was in, he said 90, I think he said.
$1
Yeah.
million
Yeah, so it was
Operating.
and that became the new,
It just raised the cap.
That's correct, right, Mary? Isn't that what, Randy was
That
saying?
is, that is correct. The last override was in 1989, which then went into play in 1990. It was for $1 million. And yes, it does reestablish the baseline. Yes.
One of the, and to your point, one of the things when we, over the summer, when we were meeting for this task force, one of the things that was concerning is the structural deficit, 2.5 not being adequate. If you have any inflation, that 2.5 is not adequate. So say you did, 5%, you got everything squared away and you got the deferred maintenance and, life is beautiful. What happens the next year if indeed there's inflation and then there's labor and there's all of a sudden, even though you have the 2.5 over your baseline, the actual baseline is 3.5 or 4%, which I'm making up as a number. This is not, Matt, please understand, I'm not taking that as a number based in fact, I'm using it as an example. But yeah, so that's gonna have to be part of the conversation is what is actually, how do we grow every year?
So what is the real name of this, of an override? What do they call it?
An override.
Override, that's the term.
Override.
That's it.
Yeah, so is an override of a certain type, but the difference meaning that it trails off and goes away. What we're looking at is just a straight override, which would then add to the base and never go away. It would just increase our baseline for our levy.
Okay.
Matt, I've got Matt in my brain now. Al?
Yeah, just real quick, I think that's a suggestion,
Sure.
and I want to second what Fran said as a primer. What I did begin, because of my ignorance in this area, I'm completely ignorant. I started doing some research,
Mhm.
2 places, Mass General Law.
Yeah.
And Mass Department of Revenue.
Mhm.
I haven't gotten very far, but I think those will be some fruitful places. Third place that I'm going to go, sort of ABC, is to take a look from SJC, Supreme Judicial Court, in Massachusetts, to see if there's any case law in the last 20 years. So those are going to be my 3 sort of research.
Case law in respect to,
Any complaints, issues raised by a taxpayer against a town that it had a 2.5 override, just to kind of comb and see what knowledge we can glean from others that might have gone through.
I think too, looking at what is percolating in just the state as far as is 2.5 the right number? Is 2.5 a number that nobody can sustain anymore if inflation is 3.5?
That's something I've never even thought of.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just being kind of very sort of silo
Sure.
focused and saying,
sure.
what's the
But I'm
law,
I
what can you
suggest
do?
that would be something, if you're looking for areas
Yeah,
of
yeah.
study, that would be another,
Yeah.
that would be something else.
Also, you might want to look at, Plymouth had an override in probably the early 90s regarding when they went to open their high school.
Mhm.
The high school was built, but they didn't appropriate the money to operate it. So it sat empty for a few years. And it didn't
I
open.
don't know that.
And I believe, I was looking at Plymouth at the time, I believe the legislature ended up changing the law to, away from a 2/3 majority to override it. To a simple majority. So because the town could not get through this, eventually the federal government and the state government said, okay, we gave you money to open up a high school. You're running a warehouse. You have to give us that money back. So it went through very quickly after that.
That is not an isolated incident. I remember the same thing happened in Situate. For a middle school, they built a middle school and did not have the money to furnish and or operate the middle school. That would be a kick in the pants.
Yeah. $2 million.
But also, in one of the other things, in the task force, not to kind of get too deep into that, but these other towns that we're comparing ourselves to, we're looking at, do not have 97% residential
Bingo.
versus 3%
Right.
commercial. If there's a differentiator in folks that have managed to grow their tax base appropriately to keep up with the times, that is the,
Look what Boston's doing right now, you know, just
yeah,
reached an agreement with the
yeah,
business owners.
right. I was reading that and saying, how did I, but it is, we do not have, and we have chosen this path.
Mhm.
And now we're going to have to see how to continue to make the rest of it work.
It's time to pay the piper.
Well,
We enjoy what we have.
we've chosen this path.
Yes.
And that has repercussions, so we're gonna have to take a look at it.
Yeah, put a bar in the pool and I'll get off the pool stuff.
All right, fine, we will work on that, Betty. I want a motion,
Make motion to adjourn.
Second.
second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mary, thank you as